Well, hello everyone, and this is EC the Gamer, and we are back with NieR Replicant. This is a continuation of the weapon story video that I was essentially should come the same day, hopefully. Uh, yes, I started reading the weapon stories. I finished with the one-handed swords already. I'm still in the two-handed swords. But they're a great read, you know, they're very interesting, very depressing too. But these stories give a lot of uh, depth to the world. Again, this game with the side quests and this type of things, you know, this weapon story, not only the main story, but this complement the main story in giving us a sense of the world, how it is, how the people have lived, you know, some of the stories, the myths, some people had, the mythology and all those kind of things. And essentially what you see here is a very depressing world. I mean, full of sorrow, sadness, anger, uh, some real sad face, you know, face from many people. I mean, something that when I read them, they're like, damn, un they're unspeakable things here, you know. Uh, but it gives you a sense of what the world is, or how it is, and how the people have struggled for many years now. But yeah, let's continue with Fool's Lament. So this has to be a continuation of Fool's Embrace, I assume. Yeah. Yeah, sorry. Uh, yeah, there it is. I think this is the dragon. Correct me if I'm wrong. In fact, let me see something. Uh, it's this one, right? Let me check something here. Holy crap, it's a dragon. Yes. I think the dragon was called Angelus. The I think that's the dragon, right? Yeah. This is the dragon from the first game. Am I correct? I never played that game, but it was a red dragon. Okay, okay. I wanted to see the interesting because one cool thing about it is that the design of the base, the source and thing, they match with the story. Most of them do match. So let me read this now that I noticed that that's actually the dragon. I was safe from the despair that shackled me. I was free from the fate that cursed me. I was pacified from the indignation that plagued me. I was changed by the day I met you. Yeah, from what I understand, Kain and this dragon made a pact together, like the same in Drakengard 3. My flame will scorch the earth below. My fan will know the taste of blood. Yeah, my wings will soar the skies above. If your eyes are to be rough after life, if your skin is to be stained with blood, if your sword is too heavy a burden, if your lips can no longer produce speech. Yeah, that has to do with the pact. They made a pact, and one of the sacrifices was actually that, the speech. The protagonist could not speak to anyone. Even if this body is not found, even if these words are stolen, until our contract is complete, until the moment this worm is lost. Damn. It's really cool to actually see more of the backstory from not only this game but the other. Okay, memoir. This is interesting because this has to do with the past, the actual past. This is like the Iron Pipe. June 6, 2003, approximately 15, just the hour. Sorry. Okay, a massive white humanoid, initially called the Weapon, but since named the Giant. Yeah, this is okay. Already I know what it is. They're talking about it's the monster that it's a ending E or ending D from the first game, Drakengard, in which Kain and Angelus, I think that's the name of the dragon, they find this giant. Just in Drakengard 3, you already know what it is. It's like this big, uh, I don't, it's a celestial body. I don't. It's like this god, sort of god that it has like a humanoid shape and it's pretty much in white, a white giant essentially. And they were fighting that. They came to another dimension, another timeline where it was Tokyo, and they were fighting it there. Massive white humanoid falls from the sky above Tokyo Shinjuku War, inflicting tremendous damage. At the same time, a large red creature, henceforth referred to as the Dragon, appears and engages the giant in combat. Though both the nature of the attack and their utility remains unclear. At the self-defense force contemplate methods by which they might attack the target. The government established a Bureau of Emergency Countermeasures. They ended up killing the dragon actually. And the giant was also destroyed by the dragon and the protagonist of the first game. And because of that, that's where the white coloration syndrome comes from the giant. Okay, this is June 12th. Okay, this is essentially a week after that, right? June 12, 23, approximately 16 hours. I don't know how to 16-0, something like that. I don't know how to pronounce that. The giant, which was locked in combat with the dragon, suddenly begins to collapse for reasons unknown. The dragon is then shot down by the 6th Division, the 303rd Squadron of the Air Self-Defense Force. No official record. S6, who issued the order to attack the dragon. Work is begun to retrieve the remains of both the giant and the dragon, but no official verification has ever been made regarding which organization performed the retrieval. This is December, so many months after the events. The first case of white coloration syndrome is confirmed in Tokyo Shinjuku War, and that's where it all started. The white coloration syndrome. Yeah, it's essentially, from what I understand, it made people into soul, NaCl. So they once the person is dying, it's just turning to soul. July 24th. Okay, so this is the next year. Humans continue to turn violent due to white coloration syndrome, with fighting growing increasingly intense in infected regions. Okay, so some of them are turning violent. With the cause of the disease still unclear, the infected are isolated and violent riots suppressed by force. Main thoroughfares are sealed and rail transportation is halted, later leading to all of Shinjuku being sealed off. At this time, the prospect of asking the American military for non-official intervention is considered, but the government defers. Meanwhile, research begins on meso particles obtained from the giant and the dragon. This is where magic, I think, comes from. That's why they call it meso particles. As well as some countermeasures for white coloration syndrome. This research ultimately leads to the founding of Project Gestalt a decade later. And that's where it all begins. Let me see this weapon. I want to see the design. This is a two sword, right? Where is the... What is the design? Okay, it's the same. It's the dragon. Okay, it's the dragon's head essentially. Very interesting design. I don't know what's the meaning of the other part. Okay, so yeah, it is the dragon again. I'm liking some of these stories here. Okay, this is from NieR Automata. By the way, I'm going to play the game, so don't worry about that. Ah, interesting. I didn't expect this. I didn't expect this story. My family has decided I am to be betrothed. I cannot resist, for I am but a tool. The man who became my husband possessed terribly cold eyes, but he too is a mere tool to be used so his family might prosper. He treats me well in his own way, but I was still unable to properly respond to his kindness. One night he calls me to his chamber, still thinking him a kind man. I go to him willingly. As he greets me, I stare at the beautiful white katana he holds in his hand. Interesting. I don't know what to think about that story. Okay, this is called Transience. Transience, I don't know what to call it. I don't know how it's pronounced, but it says they were frighteningly diligent people. They would clear forests and hunt animals even when they had no need. They developed a need to preserve food. They were unable to eat and earn more money than could ever be spent, yet there was not a single one among them who did not accept these practices, for none knew of any other custom. They were frighteningly studious people. Their grasp of calculation and science exceeded any pretense of practicality, and they would repeatedly engage in spirited debates regarding predictions of the future. They invented an increasingly difficult language and created an infinite series of complex machines which they would immediately discard, but there was not a single one among them who looked back, for none knew of any reason for concern. They were a frighteningly obedient people. Without ever being told, they would greet the morning sun at the same time in the same clothes, while toiling away in the same cramped rooms. Yet there was not a single one among them who complained, for none knew what else they should be doing. Having worked far too much, the people lost their force and took to living atop the sand. Having grown far too intelligent, the people conversed in a language that no other people could comprehend. Having grown far too well behaved, the people were unable to defy the laws that would be established one after the other, and came to live their life enclosed by tens of thousands of rules. Oh my god, the people of the mass of facade. Yeah, it makes sense. You know, the shape of the spear. Wow, but let me read this again because this one was actually cool. So they're really small. Look at this. They were frighteningly diligent people. Yeah, they would clean, hunt animals. They had no need, developed the need to preserve food. So they were very intelligent, very advanced people. Yet there was not a single one among them who did not accept these practices, for none knew of any other customs. They were frighteningly studious people. Their grasp of calculation, then they were a science exceeded any pretense of practicality. They would repeatedly engage in spirited debates. They invented an increasingly difficult language and created an infinite series of complex machines. Wow, so they're a very smart civilization. There was not a single one among them who looked back, for none knew of any reason for concern. Obedient people, without ever being told, they would greet the morning sun. Then, yet there was not a single one among them who complained, for none knew what else they should be doing. However, having worked far too much, the people lost their force and took to living atop the sand. Also, essentially, the reason why they live in the desert is because of their way overworking themselves, they ended up destroying the forest. Wow. Having grown far too intelligent, the people conversed in a language that no other people could comprehend. Even they spoken so much that it turned into a language that no one could understand. Having grown far too well behaved, the people were unable to defy the law that would be established long after. So essentially, the people of the mass, from Fasad, they became so far advanced that they regressed. They went back in time. Interesting. Yeah, the Spear of the Usurper. Let's see this one. It has a very interesting name. In a far-off land, there was a man who acted as a double for the nation's prince, performing duties in his stead as was required. One day, having finished his work, he returned to the prince's chamber to find the princess lying naked in his bed. As the double stood in place, dumbfounded, the man who shared his fate sneered and invited him to join them. Wow, really? The double loved the prince's sister, and he felt that the princess would admire him as her brother, laughing as well. Indeed, she was the only thing that kept him going in an otherwise miserable job, for the prince was a most despicable man indeed. Eventually it came to pass that a war was to be waged under the prince's command. The night before it was to begin, the prince took his double aside and promising a night with his sister if he could bring him the head of the enemy general, and as the prince chuckled with delight, the double took out his spear and thrust it through the prince's gaping mouth. Wow. That's a lot of anger there. The war over. The prince made a queen of his sister and would inflict wounds upon his own face and throat, an act which would occur every time she called out to him using her brother's name. Before long, the prince was found dead, his face burned and a spear thrust through his open mouth. The man's face, hideously burned, was the very picture of serenity. Wow, he killed himself the same way that he killed the original one, the real one. The prince made a queen of his sister. Wow. And would inflict wounds upon his own face and throat, an act which would occur every time she called out to him using her brother's name. Yeah, he just couldn't stand that. Yeah, I can understand. He just couldn't stand that. Yeah, he took his place, but he never actually saw him. I can understand that. We're getting close to the finish here. The Devil's Queen. Okay, the story takes place in a small country at around the same latitude as the northernmost member of a nation of city-states that are part of a region, with a village that is attempting to establish a trade agreement with another village on a tiny island in the ocean south of a country that used to have an alliance with a republic next to a kingdom where a queen resides. Wow, what a way to place the location of this area. It was asked by the owner of a shop frequented by the wet nurse who looked after the child born of an adulterous relationship by the wife of the master of a foolish servant who fell in love with a beautiful queen who appears in the poems of a minstrel who was loved by the country's king's wife, little brother's cousins, big brother's son-in-law, foster child, Dan. Where does one store the throne that was supposed to be adorned with decorations crafted from the materials of the handle of the lid of a pot that is the same weight as the tableware, that is the same color as a weather vane on a neighboring house, that can be seen from the peephole of a door in the reflection of a mirror, with an ornamental frame decorated with silver carvings engraved with a fragment that was made when creating the whetstone used to polish this kitchen knife? Then, the person who heard that question was the wife's husband, little sister, best brother, daughter's groom, brother's nephews, father's mother, husband, bride, niece, father-in-law, wife, husband, little sister, big brother's daughter, groom's, little brother, nephew, father, mother's husband, bride, niece, father-in-law, wife, husband, and little sister, big brother's daughter, groom's, little brother, uh, nephew, father, mother, husband, bride, niece, father-in-law, wife, father, little sister, big brother, daughter, groom, little brother, nephew. What the heck? Wow, this one is crazy. It's like repeating itself over and over again. The Devil's Queen. What would be the meaning of this? It's like the story that you hear from a friend, from a friend, from a friend, from the other friend that was at the side of this other friend. That kind of story. What is the meaning? I would like to understand a bit better. Well, that was a really cool one. I like that if it was me, I would just continue there, but nah, I just stop there. Sunrise. So I assume this is the opposite of moonrise. The distant past of a land known as the Golden Isles. There existed a sword crafted from every kind of metal and precious gem in the land. So sharp was its edge that even the slightest cut would leave an unsealable wound that eventually drained the victim of both her blood and life. Okay, so we have now a sword that is... The other was a sword that would freeze everything that it touched. This one is a sword that it would kill or it would leave an unsealable wound. In a strange turn of fate, the sword eventually ended up in the hands of a destitute woman who sold her body to get by. The sword was as long as she was tall, and she could not wield it effectively, so she instead slid it between her teeth. As a prize for the men who used her, the sword was so sharp they felt no pain when cut, and soon died without even knowing it was happening. The woman would then help herself to their coin, causing her own purse to swell. Wow, very smart. It has to be commended. She actually found a way to deal with the people who use her. Making use of her gains, the woman dressed most beautifully and soon had acquired every kind of metal and precious gem in the land, but it was not enough for her, so she decided to melt down the sword and obtain the gems contained within, a desire made manifest by the sword's beauty. Thus decided the woman heaved the sword to her shoulders and made for the blacksmith. But on the way to the smith, the sheer weight of the sword caused the woman to lose her balance, and she fell from a bridge into the river below. So unshakable was the woman's greed that she could not bring herself to relinquish her grip upon it. The woman's pale and bloodless corpse was found washed up on the riverside the following day. So she caught herself. Wow. Very stupid of her at the end, because she was able to find a way to actually make money from people that were using her, and then she just became too greedy. Well, these weapons clearly are very... Most of the weapons here, I think they're cursed weapons. Beast curse. Alright, this one has the name there. Okay. Long ago. Okay, this is the other brother, right? Yeah. The youngest was a terribly... not terribly. Terrifically lazy lad who spent most of his day fast asleep. However, he was every bit as cheerful as he was lethargic, and so was beloved by all. Okay, let's see how he became crazy. When the nation was beset upon by a most contagious disease, the youngest son did none but laze around about the palace, humming to himself all the while. But his cheerful music comforted the townspeople, so instead of hating him, they sang his praises. "Oh, what a fine young man," they would say. just the finest young man you will ever find. When the nation became embroiled in war, the youngest son did not but laze around about the palace, telling stories of the good old days all the while. But his fascinating stories helped the townspeople forget the horrors of war, so instead of hating him, they sang his praises. Oh, what an amazing young man! Just the most amazing young man you will ever find. One day, the youngest son was lazing about the palace as usual, when he realized he could no longer hear the voices of the town people, and he wondered why that might be. He lazed and he wondered, he lazed and he wondered, he lazed and he wondered. Eventually, all that wandering tired him out, and he went to sleep. That is why, in that nation where all have perished from war and disease, the only sound that can be heard is the soft snoring of a young man. It is a nation of happiness, a nation of happiness, a nation of happiness, a nation of happiness, and a nation of happiness. Wow. All these brothers are horrible, but I mean, man, the people are very stupid. Like, this. So, this guy was not bad in this. He wasn't like a tyrant, but he didn't do anything. So rather than do something about it, they just said, well, he's not doing anything bad, so we'll leave it there. Man. And they ended up dying from disease and the wars. And he doesn't even care. He think about it and it doesn't matter. Where is the army of the first brother that I heard, the middle brother, to eliminate everyone? To eliminate him at least. You know, now that I think about it, could that, where was the other one? This is the other brother, right? The eldest. Could all of these stories be related? Like the brother that was at war, that's the actual guy. That's the army that actually was killing his people, something like that. I don't know if there's a connection there, but Captain Holy Spirit. Then there's not a lot of information here. The captain tramples life under his feet. The scream of others transform into sounds of joy. Flowing tears change from despair into darkness. Conflict beckons revenge and gives way to new solitude. Well, I really can't say anything because that was so short. Dragoon lands. He had grown old. The keen, dauntless gaze had lost his light, and his stalwart body had grown soft. What's more, every ounce of fear and vanity he had gained with age now gnawed away at his heart. The king was afraid, so he repeatedly ordered the invasion of neighboring countries so as to hold on to the land he had been sworn to protect. The king was afraid, so he tried to take everything through violence and oppression, for he no longer trusted his own advisors and vassals. Yeah, this story is not going to end well. There was a dragon that had sworn fealty to the king. The wingless creature would do anything the king commanded, for he had been saved by the king once and sworn to repay his debt with his very soul, even if the king's orders were folly and madness. The dragon would follow them to the last, for his king was justice itself. One day the dragon requested an audience with the king. He was covered in blood from his latest victim, the king's own son, who the regent had ordered the dragon to assassinate. The bloody dragon hung his head low and said, "I cannot defy your orders, O king, but neither can I obey them any longer. I beg of you, kill me and grant me release." This is a tale of a foolish king and a wingless dragon in a nation that fell centuries ago. Even now the wind blows ceaselessly across the grassland. It blows just as it did on the day the king and the dragon made their pact. Wow. Could this be one of the places in here? It is possible. Okay, Phoenix Land. This is another one, the Phoenix uh, editions. So let's read this one. There was once a warrior in a frontier nation who feared not death. He was so brawny and powerful, arrows were set to bounce harmlessly off his flesh. For this reason, the warrior always threw himself into the thick of any battle. One day, a beautiful bird. Oh, this is the guy from the bird, yeah. A beautiful bird appeared before the warrior in a dream. The bird commended the warrior for his valor in battle and offered to grant him one of two wishes. The bird could bring an end of war and grant peace to all the world, or the bird could bequeath the warrior an immortal body. The warrior chose immortality. From that day forth, the warrior's exploits were nothing short of astonishing. He mowed down foes in uncountable numbers. No amount of arrows or sword or axes could slow his march. The king showered him with titles and gifts, and for a time it seemed the warrior's days of stunning glory would continue until the end of time. But conflict did not cease. Eventually the warrior frontier nation was invaded so often that the flames of war left the entire country in ruins. Crops withered, people perished, and before long there were none left who even knew the warrior's name. The shattered warrior was tortured day and night by endless starvation, but his body refused to let him die. So he sought out the bird again and pleaded for it to grant him release. "Ah, but you cannot die. You will never die." Ho ho. This is a bit like a revenge for the previous birds. You killed my my other brother, you know, and now you're going to get revenge. You're going to get this. You're going to get this curse for the rest of your life. You know, that's the thing of immortality. Like, I mean, it would be cool to have immortality, but if you are living a good life, because what's the point of living just a horrible life? So, like, there's an anime called the Asian Mega's Bride. There is a guy in that anime that is constantly suffering because he's essentially immortal. You know, he can die. And he's a life of suffering. Again, in his case, it was actually a curse. Like, it was truly meant of a punishment. But as I said before, it's like, why would you want immortality if you're just going to suffer? It's not worth. In many stories, that's the same thing. Like, there's the guy that has immortality, or a person has immortality, and they like eventually they just get bored of it, and they just want release. But they can get it because it's immortality. Okay, this is Labyrinth South. Okay, this had to do with the girl with the horn, then the Minotaur. So let's see which one is this. She was a hopelessly woman, impossibly take her 3 days longer than anyone else has. She was slowly, talked slowly, she even blinked slowly. So slow was the woman that she could not even draw water to anyone's satisfaction. The children began calling her the cow and laughing when she passed by, but she would only chuckle in response. She was hopelessly dull woman. When she fell and drew blood, she would carry on as though in a daze. Though coins often dropped from her purse, she never managed to retrieve one. If someone spoke ill of her to her face, she would take her hours for her to realize the insult. When the children saw her, they would hurl rocks with glee. She was a hopelessly foolish woman. One summer, when the village was suffering a most terrible drought, the woman vanished. The children all starved to death. The villagers spent no time worrying about the woman who ran away. 2 days later, rain fell and the village was saved, but the woman did not return, and on the 20th day, a shaman arrived at the village. The shaman held a spear with a pair of horns that was oiled and sticky to the touch. So heavy was the spear that none could wield it effectively, although even if they managed to lift it, the weapon was incapable of piercing through anything at all. The shaman forced it on the people and left it with them, but none dare approach it, and to this day it quietly slumbers in a forgotten corner of the village. I don't understand this one. I mean, the woman did not came didn't come back, but what's the moral of this story here? Full Succor. Okay, this has to do. I think these are the one from the Labyrinth, right? The 15 nightmares. So let's see. And this is Full Succor. This is this talking about a core from the game, or just the word? Let's see. This is the story of a sorrowful prince, a tale of a kingdom in a time long past. Attacked by the forces of darkness, the nation was annihilated in a single night by inhuman soldiers with red eyes and a group of black dragons so numerous they blotted out the sky. Having infiltrated the king's castle, the black dragons visited upon the king and queen a most horrible fate. It is said that their stomachs were torn open by the black dragons' mighty claws, and the very floors they stood upon became a sea of blood. The prince and princesses Torak with sorrow escaped to live another day. The prince, by the shock of witnessing his parents try and became consumed by a desire to exact vengeance. I think this is Kai, and there's a girl, the sister Furia or something like that was called. This is from Drakengard 1, I think. Yeah, it has to be. The people with the red eyes, the dragons, yeah. He hated the dragons, but he still made a pact with one of them to live on. This is the story of a terrifying prince, a history of a conflict in the long ago, obsessed with laying low his hated enemies. The prince indulged in his vengeance day after day after day. Even when faced with foes who take heal, he chased them down with tears. Then, apart from the groin to gullet, the carnage is so horrific. His fellow soldiers whispered tales of how they saw him mutilating bodies that are already long dead. Perhaps because no commander can control him, the prince is sent to an even harsher battle. This is the story of a fool prince, the whereabouts of fate in the long ago. The prince's battleground is a castle that guards a goddess. He lay waste to all before him, hacking arms, cleaving legs, rending stomachs, gouging eyes, separating heads from shoulders. But soon the injured prince can no longer tell the difference between the blood that rains down and that which comes from his own wounds, and he collapses in a heap. He writhes in pain, coughing up gouts of hot blood. He lifts his gaze and sees a hated dragon standing before him. Yet, this is the same story. This is the story of a mad prince, a meeting with a dragon in the long ago. An injured dragon stands before the prince, and though it is a different color than the beast that killed his parents, he feels the need to avenge himself upon it regardless. But as he raises his sword, the dragon says, "In exchange for both our soul, human, I will save your life and grant you power." After some thought, the prince makes the pact. It matters not to him what he might lose in the deal or that it involves a dragon. All he cares about is that he can continue swinging his blade, so he swings and swings and swings. Each blow his heart filled with a desire as black as the deepest night. Interesting. Yeah, this is the same. This is Kai from the protagonist from the first game. Okay, the last one. There once existed a cursed spear whose holder would inevitably meet a violent end. Eventually the weapon found its way to a mechanical automaton that possessed no soul, and though it was a mere machine, the spears delivered countless deaths upon it all the same. The automaton were against mechanical weapons much like itself. It was crushed to death, burned to death, and thrown to his death from great height. Yet each time the automaton was born and turned into battle anew. The war between fiercer and more the war became fiercer and more complicated. There were self-defamation, suicide attacks, false operations, and betrayal by companions. Indeed, it seemed that to the soulless automaton that it was inhabiting a kind of infinite cyclical hell. Finally, the automaton died a final time in order to save his trusted companions, an act that precluded the possibility of ever returning to life again. But as pangs of agony spread through his body, the automaton found his final rest. Damn. Damn, a lot of the stories are really cool. I really enjoy some of them. These weapons have a really crazy story. This has a face of someone there. You can see it. I have seen that face, but I don't know where. Where have I seen that face? It feels like a meal, but it's not. But then I kind of like a lot of the story. What the heck is this? Oh, it's the dragon again. It's the dragon, but I see something else. Yeah, I kind of like some of the stories here. This one I simply did not understand what was the meaning of it. But yeah, this thing is really big. But yes, guys, that's all the stories. I'm glad to actually read this. Some of them are very interesting. Some are weird, but either way, I find them very. A lot of them do have some meaning to the game. You know, again, all of them focus on something specific. You know, like how to say this? Yeah, each of them represents a lot of the how the world, the state of the world. You know, the sorrow, the hate, the darkness. You know, all those sad feelings or negative emotions. I cannot really tell if there was a really genuinely one happy story there. But they were all really cool, you know. Again, I said that this was going to be a boring video, but at least you were able to hear the stories here. You don't need, if you don't want to finish the upgrading the weapons, you already have a video specifically for that. So there's no problem there. But yes, that's pretty much it. Nothing more to do here. This is what I wanted to do with these two videos, this pair of videos. This is all the story, the weapon stories. They're all the weapons were upgraded, so that's it. There's not another sword left. But yes, I hope you at least found this very informative, this video. And as always, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, and also hit that notification bell. That way you can get notified of the videos that come to the channel. That's all for now, guys. Easy the Gamer signing off, and I will see you on the next video.